Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like with a little thumbs up.
Yep. Check out the podcast too below in the description and share it with your friends.
And check out our friends at sleepnumber.com/ham for deals on deals.
Do it. Sleepnumber.com/ham.
You know, John, what we love every year?
Oh.
We eat Sandos and we love Sandos quarterback tiers. Derek Carr in at 15. What'd you think?
I actually thought he might sniff like 13, 12 range. You know, a little bit higher. He was the first guy outside into started tier 3, right?
That's correct. He was the first guy tier 3. 14 was Burrow. 13 was Tannehill. 12 was Kyler. So the guys ahead of him, it's not a list of like well-established, right, superstar quarterbacks. So I'm with you. You definitely could see how he could be higher on the list than he was.
I think you could argue with just that group of guys that if you just switch Derek and Tannehill, nothing would change. Like they're very similar players. Maybe Ryan's a little bit older.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is really
my first instinct is that would be worse for the Raiders than it would be for the Titans.
I agree. I actually think the Titans might be more explosive on offense. Maybe Ryan's a little more inclined to run than Derek. It feels like when I've watched him. And to me, Joe Burrow is placed there strictly on hype, right? Because he was the number one pick. He blew out his knee. Now, granted, I think when he did that and everyone was watching, like we didn't expect him. He's not on pup or anything. He's back rocking and rolling. And the eye test, he looks pretty good.
Yeah.
But like Derek just – I do think Derek gets dinged because of his team, a little old school. Like quarterbacks, wins-losses is not a quarterback stat. And you could argue, obviously, you have to have a good quarterback to win. Right, in this modern day football. This isn't like the 80s where it's like you can have the top defense and the best running game and win 14 games. That's not going to happen. But I think he gets dinged for a team that just can't make the playoffs when if you truly watch him, which you and I obviously do, last year, and granted the unnamed sources back this up, he was excellent last year. It was not his fault. I mean, their defense was, I think, borderline historically, depending on what categories you're looking at, terrible. He was really good. Like he played at a playoff level. He was not the reason that they went 8-8. Now, it's not he had a bad game or two, right? So does every quarterback. But he really did play winning football. And he played winning football against really good teams, right? Remember early in the season was that week 2 Monday night, the Saints, he was awesome. The big NBC in primetime games too, which is I think always been a question. Like when the lights are really bright, Kenny, the NBC game against the Chiefs, you could argue that's one of the best games he's ever played. And that was not his fault.
He's played well against the Chiefs before, but it felt kind of like a breakthrough. Or not even a breakthrough, just...
He was awesome.
Yeah,
like it was an elite performance. And they lost, right? When Jonathan Abram takes off and Kelsey's standing there in the end zone. Of course they did, right? Because that part of their team let them down. But if you told me that he played for the Miami Dolphins, let's just say, and they had gone 10-6 last year and been right there, doesn't it feel like his number's a little higher? Like I feel like he's getting dinged. This is a Raiders tax almost.
Yeah, Tannehill's numbers were fantastic last year too, but same deal. Like I think in that boat, and also I think the tax is it's been 8 years now into the league, 7-8 years into the league, and he'd been higher on this list before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This is going into year 8.
Yeah, so he's been higher on the list before. 17, he was I think in the top 10 on this list. So I think maybe that's part of it. Maybe
playoff team, right?
Yeah. To your point, but also younger, projecting. Maybe there was some expectation from some of the people who vote that he was about to be that guy, and then he wasn't, and so maybe they're slower to move him back up. But, one of the quotes in this on Tannehill was he's clearly tier 2, bordering on tier 1. Okay, yeah. I mean, that last year he was fantastic, but let's just see. And you could argue, well, he was pretty good the year before that and pretty solid the year before that. But I think with Derek...
let's not even use Tannehill because I think he's established. Let's use Kyler. Would you rather have Kyler for Derek 100%? If I just went around to all the GMs, it's not some universal decision, right?
There's just so much less information on him too, right?
It's almost he gets more hype because you're right. Derek gets dinged a little bit because he's older.
Well, here's the perfect quote. I think this is one of the anonymous quotes. I think when you saw last year will be the absolute best you see from Derek, said a personnel director. I don't know if he has any more room to grow. They have a strong run game. They had some weapons on the outside. He played with the most confidence I've ever seen him play in his entire career. Is that sustainable? And I think our response would be, well, is that a problem if that's the best he plays?
Yeah, I mean, he played winning football last year. If he can sustain that level, and you have to make incremental improvements, right? Nobody stays the same in life, let alone in sports. That'll be fine. Like that, I think he's proven like he's not going to be Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, right? He's not going to take a hugely flawed team and will them to 11, 12 wins. Like he's not on that level. We know that. But he clearly, like Ryan Tannehill benefited from going Vrabel, Derrick Henry, good team, boom. And he's a good player, and then they start winning. Derrick has, yeah. If you wanted to defend Derrick, he has had one of the more dysfunctional organizations, definitely a top 5 dysfunctional organizations he's been there. He really has. From coaches to changeovers with position coaches. I'm not even talking about his position. I'm talking defensive coordinators running through, poor drafting on that side of the ball, things that were specifically out of his control. And again, if you put Derrick on the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Green Bay Packers, I'm not saying he's viewed as a top 5 quarterback. But I think immediately it's the difference between being 15 and like 8 or 9 and a guy that still might have some flaws and like, why can't he get past the second round of the playoffs? But I think that's how we talk about him. Because there were other quotes in there like, and you and I have known this since Fresno State, he slings it as well as anyone in the league. When he is not pressured and just has time within a pocket, you can count on a short list of a guy that can just let it rip, right? Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers. Like Derrick is at the back end of that class of just sitting, feet set, throwing darts. We all agree there. And I think confidence breeds your ability to be able to do that in more muddied pockets, which a big knock, even in this and just historically throughout his career, doesn't handle pressure well. And I'm not like, he has like uncertainties when you blitz him. Yeah, I'm saying when you hit him, it throws him off, which I think most people would say, of course, it does any quarterback, but him more than some guys. Right? Like Phillip Rivers, you can hit him in the sternum as he's throwing, and the next play you wouldn't even notice the difference. Derrick sometimes gets a little rattled.
27 touchdowns, 9 picks last year, 67%. And now obviously you add another game to it, but yeah, you and I have talked about this a lot. There are legit criticisms, there are not legit criticisms. He is not, and I think we've said this repeatedly, he is not their problem. He is not their problem. Your quarterback's your problem if your quarterback's like in the 20s and worse, or if your team is championship ready and your quarterback's not good enough to win in the playoffs. Well, we haven't seen him play in the playoffs. The one year they made it, he was hurt. Clearly, they have not been championship ready. Whether or not he's the problem is a discussion for when they get bounced from like you said, when they're on the road against the Bills in the second round, and then it's
and
that'd be
a
but again, I think he has skills that translate in the playoffs.
One thing I think we're gonna have to keep an eye on now. He, unlike some of these guys that had career years, because Derrick has had a big year before with fans watching, that is something to just keep an eye on, right? It is a lot different. I guess if you're in the AFC, you get the home game for the 17th game, so you got 8 road games. It is a lot different than playing in empty stadiums, right? Even he was very comfortable at home, as you should be, but it was empty,
right?
There's no.
Yeah,
even
what is their home
shitty,
like?
No one's booing you.
Right?
It's just
what's their home like in terms of crowd?
Something to just pay attention to a little bit.
Yeah. No, what is their home going to be like? I was at Pac-12 Media Day and I met a guy who works for MGM, and I was talking to him. I was like, "Are you guys taking the A's?" And he's like, "Well, we started talking." And he's like, the one thing he even said, it'll be interesting to see, like with the Knights, that is a home crowd. If we had a baseball team, that's a home crowd. He's like, we don't quite know what a football team crowd is going to look like, but I think it's going to be different than, a hockey team or a baseball team in terms of crowd, just because it's a one-time-a-week destination type event.
I saw I follow Spit and Chicklets, Barstool's hockey account on social media, and in the peak of the playoffs, I think toward the third round, those guys played in the NHL. They both, and they're Boston guys, they both said that right now Vegas is the best home ice in hockey. Yeah. And I think a lot of people think that, right? So it's proven now. I don't know. Is it going to be a very corporate crowd?
Yeah, that's what one thing he was like, it's a lot more expensive to sit on the 50 at Allegiant. Now I said, but it's expensive to sit at the 50. It's expensive to sit at the 50 anywhere in the NFL.
Yeah.
Now, right? If you're going to build a new stadium.
The casino does have access to a lot of these tickets, though, and you know who they're going to take care of, right? They're people that are spending money at the casinos. Right. If me and you were consistent people at the MGM or the Wynn or whatever, we would have access to the tickets, right? And those people are going to be if you choose to, because some people will like staying. I don't know. It's it's definitely the most fascinating thing with a crowd this year by far.
But the flip side of that is, if it's a local crowd, if it's going well, that can really elevate. You know, if the Raiders can somehow get some version of a Knights home ice.
Derek gave a quote this week that said, I think to Vic Tafer, maybe he was talking to the media, that said, I would rather play golf every day than play for another team. And he's been outspoken about, like, this is the only team I want to play for. In that article, one of the unnamed sources was like, you know, if he ever became available, 10 teams would immediately be lined up. Like, so Derek can, if this ever does change, his interest in the league has gone up dramatically, right? The way people think about him. So if they ever do come to an impasse, I wouldn't put it past him, because I don't know if you follow him on Instagram, see how big his house is? He's made a shitload of money. I do think, though, do you think he'd quit football if after this year they went their separate ways?
I'd have a hard time seeing it.
Because wouldn't you agree that teams would be lined up to get him?
I think you feel that. Teams would be lined up.
Would want you.
And you feel loved and wanted, and you go, wait, I can win in this place. And if you're in that situation, it means you haven't won with the Raiders. So is a change of scenery the worst thing? I think maybe you're putting a couple quotes together, because the Sando had a quote. This guy played great against Kansas City last year, which he had not done before. And if he was available, you'd have 10 teams lining up for him. That was part of the Athletic. Sando wrote that. So. And I agree.
What would Derek have got if the Raiders had traded him this offseason? What would you? 2 1s and a 2 minimum?
Yeah, he
doesn't make that much money.
You're not getting a deal.
How would he not have gone for everything Stafford? He's cheaper in Stafford, right? Stafford's viewed as a better player.
And you exchanged a quarterback for Stafford and paid that price for him. But
yeah, 2 1s and a 2, I think, would be the starting point.
Well, we talked about it with Seattle, right? But that involved like Russ, so that doesn't quite count. Yeah, I think maybe not even the second, but at least 2 1s.
Yeah.
If you're getting this guy right, if this guy is available right now.
I mean, Jamal Adams, Ramsey's 2 1s and a 2.
Yeah, you're right.
You could argue 2 1s and 2 2s. You know.
Atwell. You already made that joke, but it's a good joke.
I saw he's on the COVID protocol, or he's injured or something.
Well, I can't.
I love it. I just love that name.
Tutu Atwell. Great name.